Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Malerba, and welcome back to the All Things Homeopathy channel. Today I'll be talking about Aphorisms 9, 10, and 11 of Dr. Hahnemann's Organon of Medicine. The theme that runs throughout these three aphorisms is the vital force and its relationship to human health and illness. All three aphorisms quoted in this episode are from a 1952 Borky and Tafel publication of the 6th edition of the Organon. The one exception is the footnote to Aphorism 11, which is from a J.P. Tarcher publication of the 6th edition, published in 1982 and translated by Kunzli, Norday, and Pendleton. I chose this translation of the footnote because I like the wording of it more than the Borky version. All right, so let's get started. Aphorism number 9 reads as follows. In the healthy condition of man, the spiritual vital force, autocracy, the dynamis that animates the material body, organism, rules with unbounded sway and retains all the parts of the organism in admirable, harmonious, vital operation as regards both sensations and functions, so that our indwelling reason-gifted mind can freely employ this living, healthy instrument for the higher purposes of our existence. Okay, so as you may have noticed, Dr. Hahnemann has a propensity for composing long, complicated run-on sentences. And this can make it a little tricky when it comes to understanding his writings. With that said, the 9th aphorism is comparatively straightforward. Here he establishes the idea that the vital force is that which animates the material body, and it does so with unbounded sway over the entire organism. The vital force keeps all the parts of the whole working together smoothly and harmoniously. This in turn allows the indwelling rational mind to employ the physical body for the higher purposes of its existence. So here we see that Hahnemann clearly places his system of healing within the vitalistic school of thinking. Vitalism is a theory that holds that the life of an organism is dependent upon a force or principle that cannot be explained by physics or chemistry alone. Furthermore, the vital principle cannot be dissected by science or reduced to an assemblage of physical components, chemical constituents, or even physical forces. In fact, the vital force holds sway over all of these aspects of an organism, like a superior intelligence that ensures that they work together for the benefit of the whole. In this aphorism, Dr. Hahnemann refers to the life principle as the spiritual vital force and the dynamis, thus emphasizing the point that the vital force is neither a material thing nor is it stagnant. To the contrary, it's an immaterial force that is dynamic, which is to say that it is an active force that orchestrates the many functions of the human body and coordinates these bodily functions with mind and soul. Of course, Hahnemann didn't invent the idea of a life force. It's a concept that dates back thousands of years. In Chinese medicine, it's referred to as qi or qi. In Hindu cultures, it's known as prana. In Egyptian times, it was believed that the life force, or spiritual ka, lived on after death. In fact, the vitalistic concept of a life force in medicine was the norm throughout most of human history. The following excerpt is an AI overview of the concept of vitalism generated by Google. Quote, vitalism has been a part of Western and non-Western societies for a long time. Vitalism is a philosophy that the human body has an innate intelligence that can heal itself. It's based on the idea that a vital force is present in the body's tissues, emotions, spirit, and mental processes. When this force is not able to express itself fully, disease can occur." Unquote. Now, the same Google search that gave me this explanation of vitalism also turns up additional headings, such as, "Why is vitalism no longer accepted?" And "Why was the theory of vitalism rejected?" And "Disproof. How was vitalism disproved?" I point this out because although modern science has rejected vitalism, this perspective constitutes an anomaly. While this denial of vitalism masquerades nowadays under the guise of scientific enlightenment, it actually deviates from thousands of years of human thought. Furthermore, the rejection of vitalism is one of the defining features of the modern scientific worldview. Prior to the rise of scientific materialism, vitalism was taken for granted. It was understood to be intuitively obvious, repeatedly confirmed by virtue of human experience and basic common sense. Only something as smug and myopic as Western science would have the audacity to call vitalism a disproven theory. Nevertheless, that's where we now stand. To make claims as to the vitalistic truths taught to us by the lessons learned from homeopathic experience is to invite nothing but scorn and ridicule. The modern mind is so thoroughly indoctrinated in materialistic ideology that it instantly balks at the mere mention of homeopathy or a vital force. And the ability to think independently immediately disappears when the groupthink of scientific dogma is invoked. In this way, the modern scientific authority acts as a gatekeeper for ideas that are not permitted to be contemplated. Never mind that scientists twist themselves into knots trying to explain how organic life could possibly arise from lifeless inorganic matter. Neuroscientists would have us believe that a slab of brain tissue with a bunch of neurons and neurotransmitters are all that are needed to produce human thought, emotion, and creativity. All that is needed, they claim, is right there, nothing more. Dr. Hahnemann, however, would strongly disagree, and he tells us this in his next aphorism, aphorism number 10. Okay, so aphorism number 10 reads as follows. The material organism, without the vital force, is capable of no sensation, no function, no self-preservation. It derives all sensation and performs all the functions of life solely by means of the immaterial being, the vital principle, which animates the material organism in health and in disease. In the footnote to this aphorism, Hahnemann notes that any organism without a life force, quote, is dead and now only subject to the power of the external physical world. It decays and is again resolved to its chemical constituents, unquote. So how is it that Western science believes that life can emerge from inorganic dead matter? Believes is the key word here because science has yet to answer that question, and in my opinion, it never will. Science tries mightily to give the world the impression that it knows better, but it turns out to be all smoke and mirrors. In lieu of the hard evidence that science claims to base its theories on, it instead adapts implausible tricks of logic, like the convenient but faulty logic used to justify the philosophy of science called emergentism. Emergentism asserts that higher level properties and phenomena arise from the interactions and organization of lower level entities, but that those higher level properties are not reducible to the simpler components from which they arise. So, in other words, It's a philosophy that allows scientists to continue to delude themselves into thinking that lower level entities like brain cells, neurons, and neurochemicals can work together to give rise to higher level phenomena like thought, emotion, and even human consciousness itself. I'm sorry, but this is just an elaborate rationalization designed to justify a scientific belief that amounts to nothing more than wishful thinking. Taken a step further, in my opinion, it constitutes a deep, subconscious but vain attempt by science to eliminate competing worldviews that threaten its hegemony. After all, scientific materialism is the dominant belief system of our modern era. It's got a stranglehold on the civilized world because it's got most people badly fooled. It's got them actually believing that a human being is nothing more than a sack full of cells, tissues, and bones mixed together with a whole lot of water. It follows then that the human spirit and conclusions drawn from eons of human experience regarding the metaphysical nature of existence are nothing more than the naive, outdated, uneducated musings of the great unwashed masses who just aren't properly trained enough in the sciences to know any better. It's an incredibly audacious hoax that has fooled many people, except that is for those who have had the courage to trust the lessons learned from personal experience. Put another way, Western science has convinced most people to trust scientific logic and theory more than their own first-hand personal experiences. Of course, the very same cultural belief in scientific materialism is also completely at odds with most, if not all, religious belief systems. Scientific materialism has, in essence, replaced religion as the dominant belief system in most contemporary cultures. And granted, while science knows better when it comes to objective facts regarding the material world, it knows literally nothing about spiritual values and higher metaphysical truths. Okay, so enough of that. Now let's get back to Dr. Hahnemann's point, which cuts to the very heart of a profound difference between medical worldviews. The vital force is that which gives life to what would otherwise be a lifeless collection of material chemicals and compounds. Even if we don't know exactly what it is, we do know that the life force is a real thing that does exist. It's a mysterious, immaterial force that cannot be detected by the instruments of science. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It simply means that it transcends the limits of scientific understanding and lies beyond the grasp of scientific detection. If detection was the standard of proof, then we would have to admit that my emotions, your thoughts, and mind itself don't exist either. And of course, that would be absurd. It would give support to the idea that human beings are nothing more than mindless mechanical robots. But as Hahnemann says, without the immaterial vital principle that animates the material organism, it dies and becomes subject only to the power of the external physical world. Without a life force to organize life's functions and to resist disease, the organism decays. Furthermore, although there are countless metaphysical belief systems that claim to understand the nature of spirit, soul, the ethereal body, the astral body, the life force, and much more, the practice of homeopathy is not dependent upon knowing the specific details of those things with certainty. No doubt it would help to know the unknowable, but it isn't required in order to be able to heal illness and to assist the sick. Nevertheless, our observations regarding the dynamics of illness do give us some insight into the nature and functions of the vital force. And this is the topic that Dr. Hahnemann touches upon in the next aphorism. In aphorism number 11, Hahnemann states that, quote, when a person falls ill, it is only this spiritual, self-acting, automatic, vital force everywhere present in his organism that is primarily deranged by the dynamic influence upon it of a morbific agent inimical to life. It is only the vital principle, deranged to such an abnormal state, that can furnish the organism with its disagreeable sensations and incline it to irregular processes which we call disease. For as a power invisible in itself and only cognizable by its effects on the organism, its morbid derangement only makes itself known by the manifestation of disease in the sensations and functions of those parts of the organism exposed to the senses of the observer and physician, that is, by morbid symptoms only, and in no other way can it make itself known. Unquote. Okay, so what Dr. Hahnemann is saying here is that illness manifests first in the vital force. Once this occurs, it is the deranged vital force that then secondarily causes the organism to experience disagreeable sensations. And it is the deranged vital principle that ultimately inclines the organism toward the irregular processes that we call disease. Furthermore, the unhealthy, deranged, or unbalanced state of the vital force only makes itself known to the sick individual or to external observers by the symptoms that it generates. So again, Hahnemann makes the point that illness or disease is not to be found in inert, lifeless matter. Illness begins by the dynamic influence of some morbific agent upon the life force, thus throwing the life force out of balance. And the only way that we can know this is through the symptoms manifested by the organism locally or as a whole. Note again the profound difference between the two medical systems and how they approach illness. Conventional medicine searches for the physical source of a disease as if it can be located in some cells or tissue or organ. Homeopathy understands that all illness is a dynamic manifestation of the whole as expressed by the mistuned vital force. Okay, so in the footnote to aphorism number 11, Hahnemann offers further evidence in support of this idea of the vital force. He notes that in order to initiate a genuine healing response from the spirit-like vital force, it requires a similarly spirit-like medicinal agent in order to accomplish that goal. Since this footnote is very long, I'm going to read to you only a brief excerpt from the larger passage. Quote, when indicated, the smallest dose of a properly dynamized medicine, in which calculation shows that there's only an infinitesimal amount of material substance left, that dynamized medicine exerts far more healing power than stronger material doses of the same medicine. This very subtle dose, which contains almost nothing but the spirit-like medicinal force released and freed, can bring about, solely by its dynamic power, results impossible to obtain with crude medicinal substances, even in massive doses. The specific invisible medicinal force of these highly potentized remedies does not depend on their material atoms or on their physical surfaces, ideas that are the product of useless and still materialistic theorizing about the higher power of potentized remedies. On the contrary, it is the invisible energy of the crude substance, released and freed to the highest possible extent, which is to be found in the minute impregnated globule or its solution. Upon contact with living tissue, this medicinal force acts dynamically on the whole organism in a specific way without communicating to it the smallest material particle, however subtle, and it does so more and more powerfully as it becomes freer and less material through progressive dynamization. Unquote. Okay, so stated more directly, Dr. Hahnemann notes here that the smallest dose of a potentized remedy exerts far more healing power than much larger material doses of the same medicine. Only the dynamic power of the subtle potentized dose is capable of bringing about results that would otherwise be impossible to achieve with crude material doses. The invisible energy of the homeopathic globule acts dynamically upon the entire organism without the aid of any material substance. And finally, the more highly potentized a remedy is, the more powerful effect it tends to have. So Hahnemann's point here is that the immaterial vital force, which is at bottom an energetic phenomenon, will not respond favorably to crude material doses of drugs. It requires a similar energetic phenomenon to coax the vital force into action. Only a potentized remedy, one that vibrates at a frequency similar to the vital force in its current state, can bring about a positive healing response. So, in summation, when the vital force is knocked off balance by some adverse influence, it begins to make its distress known through symptoms that manifest within the material organism. Crude material drugs may be able to alter or suppress those symptoms for better or for worse, but they are not capable of getting to the source of the problem. The only way to get to the root of the problem, which is the out of balance vital force, is by approaching it with a similar subtle energy, like the energies contained in homeopathically potentized globules or solutions. All right, I'm sure we could mine these few aphorisms for more of Dr. Hahnemann's wisdom, but I think that's enough for now. Let me know what you think. Your comments, questions, likes, and shares are always appreciated. Please do subscribe to the All Things Homeopathy channel, and I hope you'll tune in again next time. May the vital force be with you.